What's going on, guys? This is Brian from Advancement Hockey Advising here, and today we'll be talking about the steps that you need to take to crush the SAT or ACT as a hockey player. So as most of you know here, the SAT and ACT are incredibly important tests to focus on here for hockey players who want to go play NCAA or collegiate hockey in the United States. A lot of institutions place a lot of weight on these tests for you to get into them. In terms of finances too, it's very, very important for you to do well on these tests to determine what kind of academic scholarship that you might get for a lot of these programs. Not every program requires them, but many do, and it's just a good idea to, really hunker down, do well on this test, crush it, so it's not something to worry about when you're applying down the road. So because of that, we figured we'd make a video to help you guys out here to lay step by step the whole process, what to do, what not to do, and all the things that you need to know in order to really, sit down here and crush this test eventually. Now, as always, just a quick reminder before we dive into the video to absolutely smash that like button. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another video moving forward. All right, so let's dive into the steps here. So step number one to take is to pick the right test. This is actually quite important because even though both tests are similar, they're both around, 4 hours long, each have like breaks and all that stuff associated with them. The breaks are kind of divided up a little bit differently from test to test, but they're both similar in that way. They both test reading comprehension and math, so they're both quite similar, but they are different, okay? And the main difference is the amount, the science and the math that you'll get. So the SAT is more focused on vocab, reading comprehension, slightly more, I should say, not anything crazy, but slightly more focused on that, while the ACT sacrifices a little bit of that stuff to focus a little bit more on science and just a little bit more on math too. Okay, but mainly they add a science section and the SAT doesn't have it. Okay, so those are the main differences here. If you want to register for the SAT, there's going to be a link down in the description below. You go on collegeboard.org. It's quite an easy process to register. Same thing for the ACT, but it's act.org. It's not the same organization that administers the ACT. So you gotta know that. So links in the description below if you guys want to check out more info. But yeah, so because one focuses a bit more on the comprehension and the reading, the other one focuses more on science and a little bit more on math. Pick the one that you're strongest at, right? If you're stronger in math and science, pick the ACT. If you're stronger in reading comprehension, pick the SAT, okay? It's just logic at this point. That's the main difference you gotta look at. And from there, once you pick your test, we'll move on to step two. All right, so step number two here, pick your test date, your test center, and register. Very, very important. Do this first before you start studying, okay? Before you start getting into it, because the last thing you want is for you to start studying and then you try and book your appointment, a few weeks before the test and all that stuff, and there's just no spots available near you, right? That's happened countless times to a lot of players that I've seen, and I actually ran into a similar scare myself back when I was first taking it. So definitely, this is definitely something to save you stress, to save you the headaches. Book the test date before. Not only does this save stress, but also it kind of gives you a sense of urgency, right? It gives you a timeline as to when you're gonna have to, start studying for the test. So let's say you book it in December. Well, you know that, okay, if it's September now, you have about 3 months, right, to study for this test, right? It gives you that sense of urgency. Whereas if you don't book a test date, some people, just drag on the studying process for months and months on end, maybe a year even, You don't want to do that. When it's time to dedicate a specific study period to study for this, you want that to be your study period. You don't want to waste extra time on this. And when you pick a date, you want to pick a date where you're going to have at least a 2-month study period to study, okay? At the very least. Anything shorter than that, you're going to be cramming too much. It's not going to be effective. But honestly, I typically recommend 3 to 4 months. 4 months being ideal in my opinion, but I get, not everybody can just consistently study day in and day out for 4 months. It can be quite tough. So I would say, 3 months, 3 to 4 months is usually the sweet spot. If you're currently in high school while you're taking it, I get it. You got to do your high school classes and stuff. But if you're in high school, I would suggest take it in the summer then. Study for it in the summer and take it right before school starts. A lot of players do this if they take it in high school. But if you're not in high school, if you're playing junior, I would say instead of taking classes for 1 semester, focus on the SAT or ACT, okay? Really important. It's a great way to go about it. because it's really a heavy test. It's a big test that you have to consistently study for every single day for several months, you know, to be ready for it. Now, last quick thing about the test day here is to not pick a date where you're really busy, right? And that's just common sense. So for example, you know, if you're picking it during the Christmas break time, all that stuff, that's great. Don't pick it, you know, if you have a big showcase that weekend and you have to do it on Monday or something like that afterwards, or all that stuff. Pick it when you have a nice free week, a week where it's more like downtime, where you can relax a bit before the start of the test. You know, same thing if you do it in the summer, try and do it before all your junior camps start and all that, because once that gets going, then your season starts and it gets a little bit hectic. All right, so you registered for your exam, great. We're moving on to step 3 here, and that is to pick the right resources to study. Very important. You don't want to cheap out on the resources. Trust me when I say this, you don't want to just buy some or get some like $10 book about the SAT or look at free questions on a website and all that and prepare for a week and be fine. It's not how it works. You need a high quality resource to really crush this test, especially if you're in Canada. If you're in the US, usually if you're in a good school, you're lucky. They mold you into someone who can really take the SAT and crush it. But if you're in Canada, even more important to get a really good resource to study for this test. Things you want to consider, the first one being quality. You definitely want a high quality resource. But the other one is cost. And also too, is it online or in person or / tutor services, you know? So you got to consider all these things. I would say quality is number 1, right? Get what works for you, get what's high quality that you really vibe with and that you think is the best for you. And cost, obviously you don't want to spend like thousands and thousands of dollars on this, but you definitely, you know, again, trust me when I say this, this is one thing that you don't want to cheap out on. Definitely don't be afraid to invest not quite a bit of money, but enough money into this so you do well. We work with eprep.com. They're great. They're actually, the cost is reasonable in all honesty. We offer a discount code at 15%. It's AHA, link's gonna be in the description below. You know, you can go with them. I think they're great. That's why we partner with them. We never partner with companies that we don't believe in. If you wanna go with anyone else, you can. If you have someone that knows a tutor that you can go with them, you know, and do sessions with them. There's a bunch of resources out there. Do your research and try and pick the right one for you. All right, so you picked the test that you want to take, you've registered, you have your date set and everything, you got your resources all in check, everything's ready to go. Well, step 4 obviously is to just start creating a study schedule and to do the work. A couple of things I want to mention on this is to really aim for consistency and not cramming. Very important. It's not a test that you can cram for. It's really a test that you got to learn a whole bunch of things and learn specific patterns and problem solving skills and a bunch of vocabulary that you probably haven't seen before. You know, so it's really important that you take your time, and that's why you need that dedicated, you know, 2 to 4 month period to study for this test, okay? Because there is a lot that you need to know for this test, so it's important for you to really have that time to do this consistently, just a little bit every day, or you can take days off sometimes, but most days consistently working for about an hour or 2 hours. And then once you're done studying, once you've done your focused work, you can take a break and do other things throughout your day. You don't want to cram for 2-3 weeks, 10-hour days. That's just not sustainable. It's not going to work. So you need to really just do consistently a little bit every single day. And a little pro tip that I want to give here is to really pick the time of day that you're going to study and stick to that time of day. You want to get used to the pattern of studying at a specific time every single day. It's going to get your body in tune with that. It sounds a little woohoo, but it's actually true. So for me, you know, the mornings is typically the time of day that I do best when it comes to studying, when it comes to deep work, focused work, all that kind of stuff. So pick maybe an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours a day that you're really going to sit down, study, and be consistent with that, like I said before. And you want to pick the time of day where you're most energized. For me, like I said, it's the morning. For you, it could be at night, anything like that. Pick the one that fits best in your schedule, and ideally one where you have the most energy. And in terms of core guidelines as to what to do when you're studying in those 1 to 2 hours, you know, I would say do vocabulary every single day. There's a ton of vocabulary they can throw at you on the SAT or ACT, so it's really important to really nail down that vocab and do like at least like 30 minutes of it, or do a certain amount of words every single day and make sure you memorize it. So that's one thing. Do quizzes on a weekly basis, maybe a bit more than that, but you know, like ePrep, for example, they offer a ton of quizzes that you can take. So do them at least on a weekly basis just to keep up with the material that you're doing. And then practice tests. You know, depending on the package you get with either ePrep or another resource, usually you'll get 4 to 6 practice tests. The practice tests you want to do, don't do a practice test right away. You can do a diagnostic one. Honestly, I don't think it's a huge deal. I think do one like once you've got a solid grasp of everything. Maybe after you've done 3 or 4 quizzes, gone through a lot of the material. I would say, you know, after the first month or so, you can do a practice test, see where you're at. And then from there, once you get closer and closer to the date, you want to use those full-length practice tests to do more and more and more, right? So you're going to concentrate the amount of practice tests that you do once you get closer to that date. So I would say that's the way you kind of ideally want to structure your schedule. But obviously, you know, if you need help structuring the schedule, you know, detail by detail, you could always contact us. You could always ask a tutor, you know, ask for some help. There's a ton of resources out there to help you do that. But those are the key guidelines I kind of want you to follow. All right, so moving on to step number 5 here, the last step. And this is just some last minute tips that you can take before you take the test. The night before, okay, the day before the test, do not study. Do yourself a favor, do not study. If you've done the work correctly throughout the past few months, you're ready for this test, okay? Have confidence in yourself and your abilities and the knowledge that you've gained, and have confidence that you're gonna crush the test. All studying the day before the test is gonna do is stress you out. So don't do that. Maybe the morning of, you can maybe just prime yourself by looking at SAT notes or something, for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. But even then, I would say that might stress you out depending on the person. So really, you have to know yourself at this point, see if it's worth it or not to do that. But I would say the day before, don't study, take a break, have some fun, don't stress yourself out. All right, also have a really healthy dinner and a really good night of sleep, okay? Really prioritize this, trust me on this one. Sleep is so crucial, how much energy and how focused and how alert we're gonna be, how much we're gonna remember, right? And if you have a bad night of sleep, it's really gonna impact your performance on the test, okay? It's a long test, you have to maintain focus. That's probably one of the hardest parts. It's 4 hours, right? So you have to have that focus for a long period of time. So because of that, really prioritize that sleep and the meal the night before too. The meal that you eat the night before is really gonna impact how you feel the next day. So really make sure that you prioritize those two. Also too, the night before you go to bed, pack everything ahead of time, okay, that you need for tomorrow. So all the things that you need, so water bottle, calculator, pencil, your bag, maybe scrap paper, you know, sometimes you don't need that, but just in case, you know, bring all that stuff, snacks, anything that you need the night before, like you can pack the night before, pack it, set it all in a nice orderly manner, set your clothes ready, all that stuff. It's actually very important because usually these tests are like at 8 a.m., right? And most of us don't like waking up super early. So to maximize the amount of sleep you get, minimize the amount of stress and the amount of burden, pack everything the night before so when you wake up, you can get ready to go and go to the test center. All right, next, related to one of the points we talked about earlier, is to have a really good breakfast the day of. Now, when I mean really good breakfast, don't get like, you know, 5 pancakes and 5 eggs and don't go crazy, right? Have a nice solid breakfast that you usually have, you know, that gives you energy. Don't go crazy so you're in a food coma, but definitely have something where you're gonna be sustained for, you know, 4 to 5 hours, right? Because you're gonna eat breakfast, it's gonna take some time to get the test center, get set up and everything. The last thing you want is to be hungry mid-test, because at that point you'll be concentrating on your hunger and giving attention away to the test. So really make sure that you have a good solid breakfast, not in a food coma, but you're feeling good and energized. Next, bring a water bottle and snacks to the test center. Trust me on this, really important. When they give you breaks, having some water, some snacks is really nice. You'll thank me for this one. Get to the test center early. That would be the next one, I would say. You don't wanna, you know, stress out about being late, because if you're late to this test, like, one, they might not let you in, and two, they don't give you any extra time, right? So if they do let you in, you might completely botch a section because you had half the time to do it or less than that, you know. Get there early. Sometimes the registration process takes, 15 to 20, if not more, minutes. So I would say in this case, just do yourself a favor, get there about half an hour early and you should be good. And the last quick tip here is to just believe in yourself and to crush the test. It sounds a bit cheesy here, but if you have the confidence in yourself, if you did the work, if you're confident in your abilities that you're gonna go and crush the test, chances are that it's gonna be more likely that you do. So just go ahead, believe in yourself, and you'll do great. So I know there was just a ton of information thrown at you. Hopefully I didn't overwhelm you guys. Because of that, we're just gonna do a quick recap here to go over the main points. So the first thing is that the SAT and ACT are incredibly important tests, okay? It's very, very important for hockey players who wanna go play NCAA hockey or collegiate hockey in the US somewhere. So really make sure that you go through this video and you prioritize this video here. It's actually quite important. It's the reason why we made it, okay? And the 5 steps here that we kind of covered cover. We're not gonna go over all the stuff we just did, right? You wanna pick the right test, which is step number 1. Step number 2, you wanna pick the right test date and register ahead of time. Step number 3, you really wanna pick the right resources. Really pick the right one, don't cheap out on these resources. Step number 4, you wanna create a study schedule that you'll stick to and do the work. Step number 5 here is basically all the last minute tips that I gave you towards the end. All right guys, that is it for the video. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk to us about, feel free to drop a comment down below or email us at info@ahadvising.com and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And again, if you're new here and you like this kind of content, if you got any value out of this video, feel free to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another video moving forward. All right guys, thanks so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. We'll catch you on that next one.